Listen closely, because what I'm about to say may challenge what you think you know about health, supplements, and performance. Every day, I meet people searching for the one pill, the one mineral, the one shortcut that will fix fatigue, low energy, poor circulation, and declining performance. And zinc has become one of those popular fixes. But here's the truth from neuroscience and real clinical practice. The brain and body don't heal through hacks, they heal through balance. And sometimes the most powerful tools are simple, natural, and quietly working while you sleep. I want you to imagine your body at night. No distractions, no stress hormones flooding your system. Just repair, restoration, and recalibration. This is when blood vessels relax, tissues regenerate, and your nervous system resets. And one humble nut, often overlooked, rarely marketed, supports this process not by overstimulation, but by nourishment. Not by forcing the system, but by giving it what it needs to function as designed. This nut is rich in magnesium, healthy fats, and plant-based compounds that support vascular relaxation and nitric oxide pathways, key players in healthy blood flow. But here's what matters more than the nutrient list. It works with your biology, not against it. In a world addicted to stimulation, this is restoration. In a culture chasing more, this is enough. As a physician, I've seen what happens when people overload their brains and bodies with supplements, powders, and promises. Dopamine spikes, expectations rise, and disappointment follows. True health doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from allowing recovery. When you give your body calming, supportive inputs in the evening, you signal safety. And safety is what allows healing. Eating this nut at night isn't about magic. It's about rhythm. It's about replacing late-night sugar hits and screen-driven dopamine with something grounding, steady, and biologically intelligent. Blood flow improves when stress drops. Performance improves when sleep deepens. Hormones rebalance when the nervous system feels calm. And here's the emotional truth. Many people don't suffer from deficiency. They suffer from overload. Too much stimulation, too much noise, too much urgency. This small nightly habit becomes a signal to your brain that the day is done, that repair can begin, that you don't need another hit to feel okay. If you're over 40, overworked, overstimulated, or simply tired of chasing quick fixes, this is your moment to pause. Tonight, choose nourishment over stimulation. Choose restoration over pressure. Choose a habit that supports you while you sleep, not something that promises to save you while slowly exhausting you. So here's your call to action. Simple, grounded, powerful. Tonight, replace one late-night craving with intention. Support your body instead of fighting it. Let sleep do its job. Let blood flow, energy, and performance return naturally, steadily, quietly. Because real strength isn't built in moments of intensity. It's built in moments of recovery. And when you stop chasing zinc, shortcuts, and stimulation, and start honoring balance, that's when your body remembers how to heal. When people talk about blood flow, energy, and performance, they almost always focus on the body as if it were a machine, pipes, pressure, and mechanics. But after years of treating patients and studying the brain, I can tell you this with certainty. Blood flow is not just a cardiovascular issue. It is a nervous system issue. Your body cannot restore circulation if your brain believes you are under threat. And in modern life, that threat is rarely physical. It is psychological, digital, and constant. The nervous system has one primary job to keep you alive. When it senses danger, real or perceived, it activates stress pathways designed for survival. Blood is redirected away from long-term repair and toward immediate action. Vessels constrict. Heart rate rises. Inflammation increases. This response is useful if you are running from danger. It is damaging if it becomes your default state. And for many people today, it has. Late-night scrolling, constant notifications, artificial light, emotional overstimulation, and even excessive supplement use all send the same message to the brain. Stay alert, stay vigilant, stay on. When the brain stays in this heightened state, it never gives the body permission to fully relax. And without relaxation, blood flow cannot normalize. Performance declines not because the body is weak, but because it is braced. What most people don't realize is that healing happens only when the nervous system feels safe. Safety is not a concept, it is a physiological state. It is characterized by slower breathing, lower cortisol, relaxed blood vessels, and deeper sleep. In this state, the body shifts from defense to repair. Circulation improves because vessels are allowed to open. Hormones rebalance because the brain is no longer in emergency mode. Energy returns because resources are no longer being wasted on constant vigilance. This is why nighttime matters so profoundly. Sleep is not passive. It is an active, biologically intelligent process during which the brain recalibrates the entire system. But sleep only does its job when the brain enters it calmly. If you go to bed overstimulated, mentally, emotionally, or chemically, the nervous system never fully powers down. You may sleep, but you do not restore. As a physician, I see this pattern repeatedly. People come in asking for stronger supplements, higher doses, faster fixes. What they actually need is less stimulation and more regulation. When we reduce nighttime stressors and introduce calming, supportive inputs, the body often does what it has been trying to do all along: heal itself. Blood flow improves not because we forced it, but because we removed the brakes. Performance returns not because we pushed harder, but because we stopped exhausting the system. This is the paradox of health in the modern world. The more we chase stimulation, the further we move from restoration. If you want real, lasting change, start by asking a different question. Not, what can I take to make my body do more? But what can I remove so my body feels safe enough to heal? When the nervous system is regulated, blood flow follows. And when safety is restored, performance is no longer something you chase. It's something your body gives back naturally. We live in an era where more is always marketed as better. More supplements, higher doses, faster results. And zinc, like many nutrients, has been elevated from an essential mineral to a kind of miracle solution. But in medicine, especially in brain science, excess is rarely neutral. The nervous system is exquisitely sensitive to balance, and when we overload it, even with things that are healthy, we often create the very problems we're trying to solve. In clinical practice, I see a recurring pattern. People arrive exhausted, inflamed, frustrated that nothing seems to work anymore. They've added supplement after supplement, chasing energy, circulation, performance. At first, they may feel a brief improvement. That initial lift creates expectation, but the brain adapts. Dopamine pathways recalibrate. The effect diminishes, so the dose increases, or another supplement is added. What looks like discipline is often a subtle form of dependency. This is not a moral failing, it is biology. The brain is designed to maintain equilibrium. When we artificially push one system too hard, the brain activates counter mechanisms to restore balance. With repeated overstimulation, those counter mechanisms become the new baseline. The result is tolerance, fatigue, and a sense that the body is no longer responding. People interpret this as deficiency, when in reality it is overload. Over-supplementation can quietly dysregulate multiple systems at once. High doses taken without medical guidance can interfere with absorption of other minerals, disrupt gut health, and even increase oxidative stress. But perhaps more importantly, it reinforces a mindset that health comes from external force rather than internal regulation. The brain learns to expect a chemical push instead of cultivating natural resilience. True strength does not come from constantly turning the volume up. It comes from knowing when to turn it down. When we rely heavily on supplements to stimulate energy or performance, we often ignore the underlying causes of dysfunction: chronic stress, poor sleep, emotional overload, and relentless sensory input. No pill can override a nervous system that is exhausted and on guard. When patients reduce unnecessary supplementation and focus on restoring rhythm, regular meals, whole foods, daylight exposure, and consistent sleep, the change can be profound. Energy stabilizes, cravings decrease. The body becomes more responsive, not less. This is not because we deprive the system, but because we remove the noise that was preventing it from listening to itself. There is also an emotional component to over-supplementation that we rarely acknowledge. Taking something to feel better can become a daily ritual of hope and disappointment. When it doesn't deliver the promised result, people feel broken. But the body is not broken. It is doing exactly what it is designed to do: protect itself from excess. Health is not about control, it is about cooperation. When we give the body space, simplicity, and consistency, it often recalibrates without force. Supplements have a place, but they should support balance, not replace it. The goal is not to dominate biology, but to align with it. When you stop chasing more and start honoring enough, the nervous system relaxes. And in that relaxed state, healing becomes possible again. Sleep is often treated as optional, something we fit in after everything else is done. But from a neurological and physiological perspective, sleep is not rest. It is active repair. It is the most powerful performance enhancer we have, yet it is consistently sacrificed in a culture that rewards stimulation, productivity, and constant engagement. When sleep is disrupted, no supplement, exercise routine, or diet can fully compensate. During deep sleep, the brain enters a state that simply cannot be accessed while awake. Neural activity slows, allowing the glymphatic system to clear metabolic waste that accumulates throughout the day. Hormones responsible for tissue repair, immune function, and vascular health are released in precise rhythms. Blood vessels relax, inflammation decreases, and the nervous system recalibrates its sensitivity to stress. This is not a passive process. It is a carefully orchestrated biological reset. When sleep is shortened or fragmented, the body remains in a state of partial threat. Cortisol stays elevated. Insulin sensitivity declines. Blood vessels remain more constricted than they should be. Over time, this creates the illusion of declining performance, when in reality the system is simply deprived of its primary recovery window. People often interpret this as aging or deficiency, when it is actually chronic sleep debt. One of the most damaging misconceptions is that we can hack our way around sleep. Stimulants, late-night supplements, and excessive training are often used to compensate for fatigue, but the brain keeps score. Every time we override sleep signals, we increase allostatic load, the cumulative wear and tear on the nervous system. Eventually, the body pushes back not out of weakness, but out of self-preservation. From a clinical standpoint, improvements in circulation, energy, and physical performance often begin with sleep normalization. When patients extend sleep and protect the hours before bed from stimulation, their symptoms frequently improve without additional interventions. This is because sleep restores the body's ability to respond. It resets sensitivity to dopamine, allowing motivation and pleasure to arise naturally again rather than being forced. The evening is especially critical. What you do in the 2 hours before sleep determines the quality of the repair that follows. Bright light, emotional stress, and digital engagement signal the brain to stay alert. In contrast, predictable routines, reduced sensory input, and calming nourishment signal safety. When the brain receives that signal, it allows the body to shift from defense into restoration. Performance is not built during effort alone, it is built during recovery. Athletes understand this intuitively, yet many adults ignore it in their own lives. They train, work, and push harder, assuming resilience will keep up. But resilience is not infinite. It is replenished during sleep. When sleep is respected, the body doesn't just recover, it adapts. Blood flow improves because vessels are no longer locked in a stress response. Muscles respond better to training. Cognitive clarity returns. Emotional regulation stabilizes. These changes can feel almost miraculous, but they are simply the body doing what it has always been capable of doing. If you want sustainable energy and performance, stop asking how to do more. Start asking how to sleep better, because when sleep is restored, the body remembers how to restore itself. In modern health culture, there is a strong pull toward aggressive solutions. High-intensity programs, concentrated supplements, extreme protocols, all promising faster, stronger, better results. But the human body did not evolve in an environment of constant intervention. It evolved to recognize food, rhythm, and consistency as signals of safety. When we overlook this, we often mistake intensity for effectiveness and complexity for science. From a neurological perspective, the brain is conservative. It trusts what is familiar and predictable. Whole foods provide nutrients in ratios the body understands, accompanied by fiber, antioxidants, and fats that slow absorption and reduce stress on metabolic systems. This is not a matter of preference, it is a matter of regulation. When nutrients arrive gradually and in their natural form, the nervous system remains calm. When they arrive in concentrated, isolated doses, the brain often interprets this as a stressor. Simple, whole food inputs consistently outperform aggressive interventions because they support balance rather than override it. Magnesium from foods, healthy fats from nuts, seeds, and plants, and naturally occurring micronutrients work together to reduce inflammation and support vascular relaxation. This cooperation allows blood flow to improve without triggering counter-regulatory stress responses. The body does not need to defend itself against nourishment it recognizes. Aggressive strategies often create short-term gains followed by long-term fatigue. This is especially true when interventions are introduced without addressing lifestyle context. A supplement taken on top of poor sleep, chronic stress, and constant stimulation cannot do its intended job. Instead, it adds to the system's workload. Over time, this leads to diminishing returns, frustration, and a sense that the body is resistant or broken. Clinically, some of the most meaningful improvements I see come when patients simplify rather than add. When they shift from processed convenience foods to whole, minimally altered inputs, their symptoms often soften. Energy becomes more stable, cravings decrease, the body becomes more responsive to smaller signals. This responsiveness is a sign of health, not weakness. There is also an important psychological component. Simple interventions reduce cognitive load. When health routines are complicated, people experience subtle stress just trying to maintain them. That stress alone can undermine progress. In contrast, simple, repeatable habits lower anxiety and reinforce trust in the body. Trust is a powerful regulator of the nervous system. Whole foods also anchor us in time and place. Eating real food, especially in the evening, signals closure to the day. It tells the brain that resources are available and that vigilance can decrease. This shift is essential for nighttime repair. Aggressive interventions, particularly late in the day, often do the opposite. They stimulate, excite, and delay the transition into recovery. Health is not built through force. It is built through alignment. When we choose inputs that the body recognizes and can easily integrate, we remove friction from biological processes. Blood flow improves because stress hormones decline. Performance improves because recovery deepens. These outcomes may feel slower, but they are durable. In a world that constantly urges you to do more, the most powerful choice may be to do less, but do it consistently. Simple, whole food inputs are not outdated, they are foundational. And when the foundation is stable, everything built on top of it becomes stronger. We are living in a culture of constant stimulation. Bright screens, endless information, quick rewards, and the persistent message that more effort will always lead to better results. From a neurological standpoint, this environment keeps the brain in a heightened state of arousal, repeatedly activating dopamine pathways that are meant for motivation and survival, not for nonstop engagement. Over time, this constant stimulation reshapes the nervous system, making rest feel uncomfortable and stillness feel unproductive. This is where many health problems quietly begin. The nervous system was designed to oscillate between effort and recovery. Stimulation and rest are meant to exist in balance. When stimulation dominates, recovery becomes shallow and incomplete. Blood flow remains compromised, hormones stay dysregulated, and inflammation quietly builds. People often interpret this as aging or loss of vitality, but what they are actually experiencing is a system that never fully powers down. Recovery is not passive weakness. It is an active biological process that requires conditions of safety and predictability. When the brain perceives constant demand, it prioritizes survival over repair. Muscles tighten, vessels constrict, and energy is conserved for perceived threats. In this state, no amount of motivation or discipline can force true healing. The body will resist, not because it is failing, but because it is protecting itself. In clinical settings, one of the most transformative shifts occurs when individuals intentionally reduce stimulation. This does not mean withdrawal from life. It means creating deliberate spaces where the nervous system can reset. Reducing late-night screen use, limiting caffeine, simplifying routines, and allowing boredom to exist all send a powerful message to the brain: you are safe. When that message is repeated consistently, the body responds. What's often surprising is how quickly recovery capacity returns once stimulation is reduced. Sleep deepens. Heart rate variability improves. Circulation becomes more efficient. Emotional reactivity softens. These changes are not dramatic spikes. They are steady recalibrations. And because they are grounded in biology rather than force, they last. There is also a psychological reconditioning that happens during recovery. When we stop relying on constant stimulation to feel engaged or motivated, the brain regains sensitivity to natural rewards. Simple pleasures become satisfying again. Movement feels good instead of draining. Performance improves not because we are pushing harder, but because resistance has been removed. Many people fear that slowing down will make them less productive or less capable. In reality, the opposite is true. Sustainable strength is built in recovery. Athletes understand this. Muscles grow during rest, not during exertion. The same principle applies to the nervous system. Without adequate recovery, effort becomes inefficient and eventually counterproductive. Choosing recovery in a culture that glorifies stimulation is a radical act. It requires trust that your body knows how to heal when given the right conditions. It requires patience, because recovery does not provide the immediate dopamine hit that stimulation does. But what it offers instead is stability, clarity, and resilience. Long-term health is not the result of relentless effort. It is the result of intelligent balance. When you prioritize recovery over stimulation, you are not doing less. You are doing what allows everything else to work. And in that space of restored balance, the body doesn't just survive. It rebuilds, strengthens, and performs the way it was always meant to.